Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our panel discussion. Today, we have four great founders, entrepreneurs, and investors be with us and talking about the main challenging when you start a business where you are an entrepreneur. And we all know how complicated it is to be an entrepreneur. I call being an entrepreneur a pure mission. We always talk about the good side, so the unicorns and the fancy, and it is a pleasure to be a founder and to start a business, but we all know how challenging it can be. So this is why today we invited four great experts in the sector, in the field of entrepreneurship, founders, entrepreneurs with years of experience, investors, advisors. So I want to start introducing one by one all of them, starting with Taryn Andersen, CEO co-founder of Impulse for Women. Taryn is the co-founder, say, of Impulse for Women. You can say a little bit, Calindo, please. Investor Relation Director at Telegraph Hill Capital, Venture Capital. Jury member at AC Acceleration. Experience in investment banking for 30 years and graduated from IAC Business School. Taryn, if you want to add a little bit more yourself, it would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. First thing, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. And well, I started my career, my professional career in the private banking. That was in 1999. Well, actually, I was living in Denmark. I'm half Danish, half Spanish. And then I started the private banking until 2013, excuse me. And I decided to make a MBA at the IS Business School, and then I switched to the venture capital. I started there because I was betting the managing partner of TH Capital, thinking that people from Spain would like to invest in the United States and Canada as startups. And that's how we started. And then it came over Impulse for Women 1 year later, when I saw that there was a difference between the way that females were interacting with investors than males. And then we started this NPO, trying to support them and to connecting them with investors, covering our lifetime average since the MVP until IPO. And here we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tony. You're right, but it's catching up. I have to say, women are getting more and more into the venture capital ecosystem and very strong. So I'm very pleased because I do believe must be a balance in between. Kush Katara, CEO of Get and Give Services, as an entrepreneur, founder, and CEO, and grow consultant. Kush has worked with several startups in various industries and have been on both sides, employee and founder. His expertise lies in startup growth. He has helped many startups go from 0 to 1,000. As a freelance venture startup scout, he's committed to bringing the gap between founders and investors. Kush is also a speaker who can provide information session about startups and share insight about the startup ecosystem. Thank you so much, Kush, to be with us today. Please, if you want to ask something more, please unmute yourself. Otherwise, nobody can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm the youngest one here, so I'll be learning from all the panelists also. And I bring on to the table to the young perspective. And I belong to the Indian startup ecosystem. I have worked under different categories, and I have seen all the aspects. I worked as a mentor, I worked as a founder, I worked as an employee, and I have been the customer to various startups, and I've helped many startups with growth. So I'm good with growth. So business, business modeling and product market fit, MVP, go to market strategy, and all these things are my forte. And that's what I love, and I'm truly passionate about the startup and everything. And I'm always keen on learning and executing more and more and more. And that's in short about me. Yeah.
Thank you, Kush. We are all passionate about startups. We all share the same pleasure. Michael Arumemi Ikide. Michael is a successful entrepreneur and international business leader with over 15 years of executive board level experience with aviation, travel, and hospitality sectors. He's the founder of Odyssey and Experience, a new lifestyle venture offering holistic and bespoke wellness and life management service to high net worth individuals and ultra high net worth individuals. Michael's was previously founding director and for circa 10 years served as the group chief executive officer of Eric Air Group, a global commercial Ireland plus Ireland related businesses. Under his tenure, Eric Air achieved a Deloitte estimation enterprise valuation of USD 2 billion. He holds an award-winning doctorate degree in chemical engineering from the University of Edinburgh and an award-winning MBA for Imperial College. Thank you so much, Michael, to be with us today. How's it going?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much, Max, for inviting me here. Such a pleasure. And thank you to be with all your other esteemed guests. It's great to meet all of you. And also, thank you very much. Good evening and hello to all your audience. My background is very varied. I'm chemical engineering originally, and then moved into aviation as a startup. And I was very fortunate to be part of a wonderful team of visionaries who saw an opportunity in the West African aviation space to revolutionize air travel. And that began a circa 15-year journey from taking a blank sheet of paper and developing the fastest growing airline, the largest airline in West and Central Africa, operating through, US, UK, South Africa, Dubai, with 3,000 staff across the world. So it was a fantastic experience, growing a complicated aviation business across the West African space in an emerging market territory with all the different complications that brings, and then expanding that onto the international footprint and operating in international markets, coordinating and working with different satellites and networks of teams, and seeing and how to pull all that into a coordinated whole for operational performance. It was a wonderful journey. And then after that, I've also started another entrepreneurial venture into well-being and lifestyle services, because in addition to all that, I have 35 years of ongoing competitive sports in health and wellness. So that's a very important part of my psyche. So now turning my attentions to that in the well-being and lifestyle space. So, I'm a fellow traveler with everyone else as an entrepreneur. So anything I can share that would help anyone, and I'm also here to listen and learn from my other fellow founders and entrepreneurs. So thank you very much for having me.
Thanks to you, Michael. So our last but absolutely not the least panelist today is Hans Bernhard Meyer, investor and CEO of Coffee More Holding. Hans is set to build great companies as investor and advisor based on 30 years of experience, professional finance, HR, and entrepreneurial experience in UK, France, Germany, and Switzerland. Following his PhD at the University of Cologne and an MBA at NYU, he started his career as an investment banker in London. Following his great passion, then became an independent investor and advisor, and to launch Coffee More. His holding invested in unlisted private equity to support fellow entrepreneurs as investor, strategic advisor, and mentor. How's it going, Hans?
Thank you very much, Max. Well, thank you very much for inviting me again. We had the pleasure already, I think, a year ago, and I was participating your panel, and it was quite exciting. So just perhaps briefly, a couple of words to my career. I'm an investment banker at heart. I started my career a long time ago at Morgan Stanley, and I've been in investment banking since then. For me, as an investment banker, I always look for undervalued assets. That's what I'm looking for. And it used to be bonds, it used to be shares, listed shares. And so I've now come more or less to the end of my career in a certain sense, because I'm investing and I'm looking for and investing in undervalued shares and in undervalued unlisted shares in luxury. I've recently joined, this is now 4 months ago, the advisory board of a great company called Heroes AG, which is actually launching through the social medias a lifestyle merchandising company based on the social medias and on the e-commerce. Very exciting, because again, I am advising the founder on how to get it right. And myself, through Coffee More, I am investing in French luxuries. I have, among other things, a share in a champagne company, and always, it makes me gives me a lot of what I say, a lot of leisure and a lot of fun, because the luxury business is a very interesting business, because the codes which are used to set the markets are quite different from the codes which are used in the normal commercial markets.
Thank you, Hans. So, if Kalinto, you can bring back the PPT, we can start with our topics. I mean, as I said before, when we started, we always talk the good, but startup is not just pleasure. Startup, this is why just few founders succeed and many failed. Many of them failed because startup is challenging. It's extremely challenging. So many problems that you encounter every day. You must, in some way, to find a way to overcome them and moving forward. This is why today we have 6 great topics to share with our unbelievable panelists. And the first one is about psychology. Especially when it comes to funds are backed by entrepreneurs, any stage, backed by private investors they want return. And giving return means you must perform extremely high, much more than you will do if you own 100% of your company. The pressure is different. So I want to start with Taryn. And Taryn, please, what's your thought about the psychological price of being an entrepreneurship?
Well, I think that what impressed me actually has been when I saw those startups that they were starting to grow their team, to hire people, to start to waste a lot of their budget, especially those companies that they're burning very quickly. And suddenly there was no more cash in the company, and they were struggling on how to to take the employees out of the company, and to reduce the employees and to pivot the business model, and how to come out in front of a VC in that case and start to explain us that if we are not going over there, they're gonna die. So you could see how the way that they're under stress sometimes is not helping. It's the opposite. It's like sometimes you say like, hey, come on, calm down, go for 2 weeks for vacations, come here. And you could see that responsibility that they have and the pressure that they have on them makes it very difficult also to see not the forest, but just see the tree. So I don't know the other ones, if you got this situation before, but we have several, especially after during COVID happening, that some started, they were falling like that, well, because the sectors, they were in dreams, or they didn't have enough cash flow, or they had to pivot their business model because it was not working anymore. So what we were seeing from them, it was incredible the way that they were so stressed and the way that they were dealing with it.
Performing under stress is just for a few people, I have to say. It's very, very complicated, and it takes a lot of attitude. It's very stressful. I mean, psychologically, it's a nightmare. So thank you so much, Taryn. Hans, what do you think about?
I would like to step back a step. And in my career, as I have seen many entrepreneurs fail and also succeed, I am always, I'm actually, my experience is that you don't become an entrepreneur. You, in fact, it's not a job which you're looking for and which you actually apply for. In the end of the day, is you are an entrepreneur, you're born entrepreneur. And you can see this from young age. I mean, there are men and women and boys and girls who are 12 years old, 14 and 16 years, who start, creating ideas. They might sell lemonade. They might actually loan the loan of the neighbor, and they're always busy trying to to get ahead. And these are the real entrepreneurs. And I've seen many startups also in the accelerators I've been accompanying, of actually people who don't have an idea on a job, And then they say to myself, where to go is to become a consultant or a banker or whatever. And then they say, hey, there is some public money available. Let's become an entrepreneur. Let's become founding a startup on an idea. And they will fail. They will fail because, in fact, they cannot. They are living. The entrepreneur is every day. The entrepreneur works in a hostile environment, and to work in a hostile environment, you have to be stress resistant. You have to be a hero in a certain way, and you have to improvise all the time. And this is a talent which people have, and some people don't, and most of the people don't have. So for me as an investor, I always look at the team first, and secondly also as a team and the character of the entrepreneur. I judge him if he's really able to resist stress, or will the stress break him? It's interesting to see that if you share ideas with other mentors, they always agree. We often agree on the personalities, specifically if you have some experience in that business.
Thank you so much, Hans. Michael, what's your point of view about stress?
Yeah, I think Taryn and Hans have hit on some critical points straight away, and I would actually like to sort of start at first base, which may sound slightly counterintuitive since we're all gathered here, prima facie a champion in entrepreneurship. So we are all advocates of entrepreneurship. But I think in my observation, there has been an explosion in the number of entrepreneurs entering into the market space, which is a great thing. I think it's a 14% increase at the end of 2022, 14% more entrepreneurs. So it's a great boon to the economy. But I think perhaps there's been probably a rarefication and over glamorization about entrepreneurship, perhaps to the detriment of others. It's become more of a virtue signaling kite mark to say, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a founder, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I want to do something very important, which is underscore the equivalence between entrepreneurship and non-entrepreneurship. They're equivalent, they're just different. There is nothing wrong in turning up 9 to 5, working in a multinational organization or a small firm. You stay there for 10 years, 30 years. This is completely legitimate, and that's also as equivalent as being an entrepreneur. The reason I say this is because entrepreneurship is a very unique endeavor, and you need to understand that going forward. I appreciate that different starting points for entrepreneurs. So, you have resourced entrepreneurs, let's say large multinational corporations, or unresourced, experienced and unexperienced. So I think we're generally talking to the sort of early stage unexperienced entrepreneurs, or even more experienced. And so entrepreneurship is an expedition. You've got to think about it like that. It's an exploration. It gravitates and draws certain personality types who are comfortable with really staying outside their comfort zone, working in uncertainty, working under really highly volatile environments, very adaptable situations, self-motivated, and understand that this is,
like I said, it's an hostile environment. It's an hostile environment.
Absolutely.
And you said the expedition. I think it's exactly, entrepreneurship is an expedition in a hostile environment, and you have to be prepared. You have to have the stamina, and you have to have the endurance.
I think that's exactly right. And once we start from there and understanding that, when you go into it, I think a lot of the problem that I find with founders or entrepreneurs, especially early stage, is that they're really not aware of what they're entering into. They really don't understand that you are now about to enter a marathon. You are now about to enter the most challenging thing you have probably ever taken on board. To some people, that awakens the spirit and passion in them. They're called to that. Yes. Entrepreneurs, by and large, are people who are motivated by a particular problem. Something's pushing them they're motivated by a particular problem to solve a particular issue in a particular way, to contribute to the betterment of society. So this galvanizes them forward. So all I would say, the psychological price is, first of all, really consider whether this is an avenue for you. There's nothing, there's nothing wrong if you don't want to be, but really consider that. And then going into it, understand that in the whole workspace is being crippled by mental health and stress. This is something that's ubiquitous throughout the work organization. I think it's something like 15% of the global population now is recorded with mental health, substance abuse disorder. I think there was a poll done by Gallup recently where workers are reporting increased levels of stress, burnout. I think it's 44%, nearly 50% of workers are reporting increased daily stress. So this is a crisis. And the ways of dealing with it are the same ways that we have to address it, and it's being addressed in corporate organizations by taking a holistic approach to your well-being. I understand, but it's in. Carry on. Taryn, did you want to say
Michael,
something?
I do have a question. Do you think that all this increase that you were talking came from the higher entrepreneurship increase in the last years? It's because there are coming more people to become entrepreneur. This is why it's hiring this.
It's an excellent question. You guys are VCs yourselves. If you look at the money, the amount of capital investment going into available for entrepreneurship, as Hans would recognize, it's been growing steadily over the years. I mean, I think back in 2017, it was 22 billion globally. I think by 2021, it was something like 121 billion and projected 150 billion in 2020, 2022. So there's a lot of money. There's a lot more ideas and opportunities. And there are a lot more investors, entrepreneurs coming into the space. However, and so you've got more entrepreneurs coming into this space, competing for very limited amount of, it's a very competitive environment. So even though there's money and there are entrepreneurs, you find that less than 1% secure angel and VC funding. So there's a mismatch. So they're competing in a very contested market for very limited funds. So this does put a lot more stress. But the principles of standing out are the same, which is, you have to have a strong case, a very strong pitch, a credible business plan, and solid financial projections. But I just want to come back to very quickly, if you don't mind, to the issue of the psychological stress, because the solutions are the same for everyone. And I think, yes, balancing their health, balancing their emotional relationships, etc. These are very important. But that's what I would say for now.
Thank you so much. Kush, please, if you want to add something more, and we move to our second topic.
Yeah, so I'll keep it short because it's already consumed. So I'll tell you an incident. I'll tell you an irony. Before this startup, I had one startup in mental wellness, and I was founder of that startup. And meanwhile, I was also working as a growth hacker in a startup to fund that startup. So one day I was working like 1 week. I was working whole like around 14 hours a day, and I was posting about work-life balance on social media. So you can say like psychological toll and stress and everything is inevitable with entrepreneurship. Even you are running business, and everyone running business can relate to it. Mostly it happens, I feel like mostly a lot of founders overcommit to the venture capitalists with regards to growth. That creates an excessive external pressure as well. And then there are certain unrealistic targets and other things. So we need to keep a healthy culture, and like there are certain techniques we need to adopt to make sure there's the stress is maintained, because it will be there. It's inevitable the way the startup grows, and that's why the startup is a startup, because its growth and its vision of changing the world. So it comes with a price, so you gotta pay, but you have to focus on how you can minimize it. Everyone has their own techniques, you just have to figure it out. Yeah, that's.
Thank you so much, Kush. I mean, it's not only about startups. Entrepreneurs are under pressure from day one until they finish. That's how it is. There is nothing to do. You can always fail. Apple can fail. Facebook can fail. Amazon can fail. Everyone can fail. So you must be very much awake every day. We can move to our second topic. And the second one is exploring product market fit. Now, I had to say, again, I talk to, as all of you guys, we talk to so many founders. And when it comes to market fit, I believe there is a misunderstanding here. what exactly market fit means and how complicated it is getting an answer from the market if what you're doing actually matters to the market or not. In the end of the day, you have to have someone who pay, otherwise you can only fail. Hans, what do you think about how complicated, how funders, and not only funders, must approach the market fit?
It's a very good question. It's actually the core question of entrepreneurship and the startups. My experience again is that many startups and many entrepreneurs within startups have a certain idea of the need of a product of humanity, and they start to develop a product which they think the market needs.
I think we lost Hans. But meanwhile, we're waiting back for Hans. Taryn, what do you think about?
Well, actually, the startups that we have, basically, they are already having an MRR, and we are investing once that they have metrics. So sometimes what we're missing is the understanding of the market, which doesn't mean in geographical terms. In order to grow, they think sometimes that it's super easy to copy paste startups from the United States that they want to come to Europe. Sometimes they think that Europe is the same, like in the United States. Oh no, it's not like the same. And culturally, one video game that could work and fit super good in Italy, that doesn't mean that it's going to be fitting in Spain just because it's the same culture or the Latins or in French. I mean, we have seen how a lot of times the approach, the analysis of the market, it has not been well done. Hans, you can follow on if you want.
Yes,
I was waiting for you.
I don't know what happened, but I got a breakdown. No, what I'm saying is that the entrepreneurs, they come with an idealistic idea of the product, because sometimes it's actually born out of a personal need or a need they think humanity has, and they don't realize that in fact the market is actually not ripe for it, or the market is actually not going to take it. Specifically in the fast-moving consumer goods business where I'm in, I can see that they completely underestimated, most of them, the capital needs for pushing a product into the market. Because if you have to explain your product, you need a lot of money, and they're running out before they actually finished explaining the product. So the market fit, they have to think about the market fit, start from the beginning and not finding out later how to fit the product into the market.
Kush, what's your take with the startup advisor?
Whatever I wanted to say, Dr. Hans has already covered it, but I'll just add one more point. Like feedbacks would be like regressive feedbacks would be, it's a must for product market fit, and feedback based pricing also, like there should be a strategy of keeping pricing. There should be different aspects that should be considered, and of course feedback, MVP, feedback, and I feel that's the key. That's the key. You gotta dive into the deeper aspects of the product, and get the answer out of your target audience. So there you go. Instead of launching unnecessary features that most of the founders do, yeah, that's the only thing you got to focus on: product market fit, feedback, and then reiterate. Yeah.
Thank you, Kush. Michael, you just launched your startup right now. You are very much under studying the market and see how it is reacting. What you can say? What you can add more?
No, I think my other fellow panelists have really covered the territory expertly well. But like with most of these things, it comes down to the unglamorous foundations to begin with. Start with the actual making sure we've got the strategic side of things correct. You've done the actual homework in ensuring you've understood what the value proposition is. What problem are you solving? How are you really specifically solving that? What makes you differentiated from your competitors? Understand the positioning in the market. Do your primary and secondary research. Check for buyers, and then it's agile test and learn. You use your concentric circles of influence. First of all, speak to your target audience. That may be your family, friends, maybe part of that group. experiment with them, bring that further out, talk to other individuals within that industry space. It could be service providers, consultants, probably even other competitors, indirect or direct, etc. And then it's agile test and learn. You bring your product out, see its response, continue to MVP, and see what the market says. But I think Hans made a good point in terms of one of the real problems with struggling to find the market fit is communicating it. And that's underappreciating what is actually required for effective marketing. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I mean, I believe also moving from B2B, B2C, there is a huge difference. Hans can, I believe, say more. When you are in the retail industry, it matters a lot how much money you have, because seriously, marketing is so expensive that if you don't have so much cash, you will run out immediately after. There is no way if you're good or not. You have no more money. The game is over.
The problem in the fast-moving consumer goods business in general, when you are actually in a market which is B2C, is you can spend $1 million, you can spend 10 million, you can spend 100 million on marketing and still not having the success. And that is the problem for most VCs actually backing startups in this area, is because they don't have a return on the money. And even if they invest 10 million or 100 million, they don't have assets, because the market, the money you spend on marketing is actually lost because it's burnt. So it's very difficult to create an asset in the consumer business. If you're slow on sales, it's a big problem. And this is where most companies I have seen, and even big ones actually fail, that they underestimate the needs of the market and the speed of the market and the shift of the demand. Unless you are Louis Vuitton, who basically sets its own markets, then it's different, because then you control the process and you set the standards. That's a different situation. But otherwise, if you're a follower or a Me Too company in the consumer business, you will have always problems, unless you come up with something really new, which the market didn't have, or with a new distribution, a channel which the market hasn't thought about. Then it's innovative. But if it's just a Me Too situation, extremely difficult. I would never invest in a Me Too situation.
Thank you, Hans. I will move to our third topic of the day, and designing a winning business model. Michael, I want to start with you, because I know how meticulous you are when it comes to business model numbers. How actually can a business model be designed for winning?
Yeah, I mean, if one could answer the question to that definitively, one would be rivaling Elon Musk, wouldn't they? or more. And that is the golden question, isn't it? Indeed, I think no, it's a fair question. I think for me the basics comes down to, and just to demystify, because there are a lot of different kind of like misconceptions around the entrepreneurial journey that kind of make it esoteric and complicated. But really, it's about putting the thought, I believe, putting the thought up front. There are so many different permutations you can take, but there's some basic frameworks that really do help. One of them, in terms of any founders out there who are first-time founders, etc., is a business model canvas. A really simple way of making sure that you understand what are the key categories that you need to be thinking through, and spend that time up front. What are your key partners? Who are the key partners you're going to be working with that are going to help you optimize your business and de-risk? Key activities. What are the key things you need to actually get done in whatever period of time you're looking at? Key resources. How are you going to create excess value for your consumers? It might be human resources, intellectual, financial, your value proposition. A lot of founders don't spend the time actually doing the plan and doing the hard work up front, because that saves you when you then reach problems later on. You're always going to have issues in startup. Challenges are a feature, not a bug of the startup environment, but you want to try and mitigate that. So think clearly, what is your value proposition? What are your consumer relationships? How do you want to engage? This then affects your business model. Are you providing remote services? Is it an in-store experience that you want? Are you a luxury product? Are you a mid-tier product? What are your consumer segments? Do you understand them? Do you understand them directly? Let's say you're selling to corporate executives. As an example, you think about the corporate executive as one segment pool. He or she's PA may be another, the gatekeepers, revenue stream, cost structure. So I think if you begin with this, rather than what most founders do, which is sort of grope in the dark, and they think they want to get clear before they write down their plan and projections. No, you get clear by taking the time to do that work up front. And that gives you a better chance of not definitive, but a better chance of securing a winning business model, and then getting out there and testing. That's
Indeed. Kush, how your founders approach modeling their business and make sure that one day someone will pay?
I totally actually agree with Michael. First, you got to define what your value proposition is. First, you have to be clear on that. Then, accordingly, you have to do a little bit of experiment with business model. Try to see what are the pipelines where revenue can come from, and what are the innovative way and innovative approaches that you can take ahead to build a business model. A lot of founders, what I've seen is like they go for a basic business model which is not scalable. So one should be aware that the model that you are implementing is scalable at large scale. One, because if you're doing smaller numbers when you are starting, you are eventually doing the smaller numbers and everything. So at that particular time, the problem is not the problem with business model is not identified, but you should but when it comes to large number, the problem arises and all, and that's where the clarity on the value proposition works. So you have to be clear on that, and then make twists and turns according to slight changes, but make sure the business model is scalable. And yeah, that's the key.
Thank you, Kush. Taryn, where do you see the problem with your startups? How do they approach their business model?
Well, actually, I think that is, I agree with Kush and Michael said, that you're starting, you got an idea, you think how it's going to fit and how you're going to scale and how you're going to make your profits. That's the first thing that actually an investor wants to know, the first one. And then the team, and the team again. But first, we're going to see how you're going to make your revenues. And for sure, sometimes, depending on the maturity of the stage that you're at, you are, it could happen that you're switching. As we say, Michael said previously, like we're doing a Canva, that's super good, but 1 year later it doesn't have anything to do from the previous year. So, because suddenly you find out that the way that you are approaching this market or the other one, they're different ways, and maybe you are making more profits, I don't know, in another unit of business that you weren't even expecting on it. So I think that the good point of being a startup is that you're little enough in order to prove, test, and see if it could fit or not. So that's some things that that a big corporate, until they realize that they're doing a mistake or a bad decision, could take them like half a year or 1 year until they remove it. And a startup has, in the short term, knows how to validate it. So I think that is very important for startups to permanently see and have a feedback of their employees and from the market as well, in order to see the approach, how it works, and which is the return that is given to you.
Thank you so much, Taryn. Hans, how complicated is in the luxury industry modeling?
The luxury business is a very complicated business because it's actually the top end of the market. So you're not allowed to make any mistakes whatsoever, not a single one, because the problem is that you are, of course, highly exposed. You're dealing with products which are very expensive, and where actually the image is everything. So you're dealing here not with an item, with a handbag, but you are, for instance, an example, but you're dealing with the communication or the prestige the handbag actually conveys to yourself and to others, which means it's highly fragile. It's a very fragile business, and you have to get it really right. It's probably the most complicated within the consumer business, the most complicated area within consumer business, because you can only make mistakes, and that is the biggest problem. This is why the VCs and investors actually shy away from that kind of business, and that's the reason why the Louis Vuittons and the Kerings actually are so successful, because they can gobble up every company they want, and they change their business model and they integrate it in their own network, and then they succeed. Look what Louis Vuitton did with Tiffany. It's absolutely amazing. Just go on the website and have a look at the new building, the flagship building in New York. It is actually awesome, absolutely awesome. And there you can see actually craftsmanship in the consumer business at its best. There is nothing which tops that kind of activity, that kind of knowledge.
Thank you, Hans. We covered enough. We move to our fourth topic, so we go fast as we have 6 to discuss. And I want to start from you again, Hans, because you have a pretty strong experience in HR, for what I know.
Yeah.
And hiring, not only for startups, of course, for startup is vital, because if you get thrown 4 times, again, you are at the very beginning, probably you already failed. But hiring and engaging with the right person for success, to go ahead and succeed, it's vital. Now, how complicated is hiring for founders at the very beginning? They don't have so much money to spend, so you need to balance between triple A or employees, very good one, at the same time you can't pay too much.
Well, you gave the answer yourself to the question, in fact. But let me put it that way: if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. And the problem is, of course, with the startups, that they don't have a lot of money, so they can't actually buy the experts, and they can't buy the experienced professionals. And that's the reason why for them sometimes they actually they go bust, because they lack the experience. That's the reason why mentors and business angels come in. Hopefully, and help them to grow. But let's put the question on another level. It is, of course, the people you're hiring for startups, they have to fit in the team. And this is Taryn will probably, confirm this. And if you fit in a team in a big company, that doesn't mean that you can fit in the team of a startup, because the communication is different, the pressure is different, the stress is different. And you have to be highly, motivated already as a person, to work for a startup, and to find these kind of people next to the experience, the professional experience they have, is not very easy. So Taryn can probably say something about that, because she is quite knowledgeable in that area as well. It must be very difficult to find people who actually fit in a startup. Because they have to have a certain personalities, which is not easy to find.
One of the questions that we always make is if you're in love with the project or with the salary, because it has nothing to do. And as Hans says, someone that is coming from corporate doesn't understand how maybe they have to stay longer at night. Maybe they have to make one day call startups or call another investors, or be behind something that is out of their comfort area. And if you're not prepared to be open to make every day another thing, it's very hard to hire these people, because it's not going to give you the expectations and the returns that a startup needs, especially at the beginning. Because it's like you have to change your hat, and you have to have this ability to be open and to, okay, I do not know it, but how can I make it happen? Let me know.
It's not only also to do multitask, because if you work in a startup, probably you're not going to do only one job, we are going to do multiple jobs.
Therefore, you have to be an open mind. Maybe people from corporate, sometimes they are very focused on this department and they know how to do this. And it's difficult for someone coming from corporate to give some Well, that happens very often. People from the mentoring mentors, that they want to help and support startups. Super good. For me, the best mentors are investors already. Investors that they're already investing and they have seen a lot of different strategies at different types of startups. And for sure, people from corporate knows a lot. But as I said previously, until they make a decision it turns over and they can validate it if it works or not, has nothing to do at the time for the time that a startup is starting in the market. 3 months for our startups could be the breakdown, you know, if they are having a bad decision, not the corporates. So here is things that we have to change. It's the same like CEOs that they're starting with a startup. Suddenly they have 2-3 employees. When it gets big, sometimes they don't even know how to manage so many people. So just have to move over and develop another business or develop another thing, because it's a matter of you are super good in a business developer. It's something that you are specific and you were born for that, only for that, not to manage 500 employees behind. And yes, we deal sometimes with this with the founders or the co-founders.
That's the reason why scientists are often very bad managers, because they're very good in what they do, but they can't run a company.
Michael, I suppose you are under hiring. If you are not, you will be soon. And what's your point? And what do you think about stock options to attract more talents?
Yes, of course. We've said it quite. You're in a paradox in the sense that you want to, you don't have enough funds to necessarily, if you're an unresourced entrepreneur, which is by and large the context in which a lot of individuals will be listening to this, we're speaking to, who don't have a lot of resources. And you have to find a way of attracting the best talent you can. And that may not be necessarily straight cash, but you have to look at maybe other options, employee share participation scheme for your founding team, perhaps. But in my experience of over 15 years of building companies, I agree with what Taryn has just said in the sense of, in my recruitment process, or when I sit down with individuals, I was always skeptical about individuals who came from established, mature, multinational corporations, because yes, they have the expertise, etc., and the corporate bona fides, but a startup is a different beast. It's a completely different animal. It requires different skills, flexibility, adaptability, and a real hunger and drive. So what I would say to encourage people is this: they're different life. You're in a complete. There's a whole life cycle to the startup journey. Initially, you try and get the best individuals you can. Ideally, I always prefer to go top down. Try and recruit the best people you can in the main areas: operations, finance, commercial, marketing, and let them kind of build their teams. But by and large, you want to recruit for character and commitment, because that's really, really what you really need to motor yourself forward as a startup. As you start to grow, you then have to, typically a founder has to understand how to delegate and start bringing in on the individuals that can take more control over other areas. And that tends to be a stopping point. But there's one thing also just to bear in mind about recruitment. And I think founders or entrepreneurs come to this point. There comes a point where your initial founding team, there's a lot of, you're like a family, you're so close, and there's a lot of commitment and loyalty. And it can get hard to, when you come to the point of understanding that the people necessarily who got you to a certain point may not be the ones to take you to the next level. That can be hard for founders to understand when to, right, I need a refresh. And you need to think, you've got to move away from being maybe say personal and understand your focus and commitment is the profit maximization and the performance of that organization and the other key stakeholders, etc. And that's very important, because the winning or losing for a startup moving to the next stage of its maturity and growth is failing to recognize when we need to upskill the talent and really focus on performance of the organization. So I would say that.
I mean, I'm absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Kush, would you like to add something more?
Yeah, I'd like to, since all the points are covered, I'd like to mention some mistakes that founder make. I think like while hiring a founders, most of the founders get too excited and they hand over the big titles very soon. Like when they onboard someone for operation, they give the titles as operations head and other thing. That I feel is not right, because you have to let the employee earn that, and you have to evaluate them through the process. You have to get certain cliff period, like while vesting you have a cliff period. You don't give the equities right away, right? You have a cliff period for the ESOPs and other thing. So you have a cliff period for the titles as well, because demotion is tough, but promotion is easy, and it even motivates the people. And yeah, and I feel that culture plays a crucial point here, that you have to build a culture such a way that the employee gets motivated enough to come regularly and work regularly, and be happy to contribute towards the vision and growth of the startup. So the yeah, as said by my other panelists, character matters and commitment matters. So you have to look on that. If you're not good with looking a particular aspect, you can look for third party consultancy to hire a to get through the tech interview if you're hiring for a tech people. But for the character fit and the commitment fit, you have to take the interviews and other things personally at the early stage levels. And later on it becomes difficult, but yeah, because early team is the most crucial one. So that's what I would like to add here.
Thank you, Kush. I think you need to adjust your video because it's frozen. But thank you so much for your contribution. I'm moving to our fifth topic, and so we are close to the end. And the hunt for the right investor. And now here we go. How complicated can be finding investors? It's an absolutely tiring job. You can work night and day for 12 months and you're still there with no money at all. So, Taryn, who better than you can start? And please, how complicated it is, and what must be the process to get there?
I think that we have to make a psychological course before. Try to make, well, actually there's a lot of now there's starting to become some apps that they make psychological profile from the founders and from the investors in order to see the match, because actually it's like a lovely relationship for those that they're investing in you and for those that you want them to be investing in you, you know. And I think that is a long term, and it's very important to see that our mindset and the focus and what we're expecting one from the other one, it's very well defined. And even though that you make a lot of questions before you make the investment, you're always missing some questions or happening things that you're not expecting, as always. I think that it has a lot of movement. Sometimes you want to get off all the investors from the previous round. Sometimes the big ones, they took you off because you're too little for them. So it's like a kind of, everyone wants to buy the piece of cake and to be over there. And at the other side, the founder also has their own objective, for sure. And I think that the only one that the objective that we have both sides is that to get a lot of returns, no? But besides, in the in the meantime, there's happening a lot of things. I don't know what you're thinking about that.
It's complicated. Thank you, Taryn. Kush, how do you advise your funders when it comes to finding the money?
Yeah, sorry, I think there's a little glitch. Yeah, sorry. For fundraising, I think like for finding the right investors, I usually suggest my startups who I'm mentoring, like you set a Google alert. There's a trick. You set a Google alert with a particular industry has been funded, so you can see the articles that coming through of the particular industry has been getting funded by that particular person. So my suggestion would be to, the founder should go check that out. You'll get the list of, by this way you get a list of the investor that are actively investing in that particular industry. So that saves a lot of time. And before getting ahead, you see like whether if the investor is the right fit or not. For that, you have to talk to the portfolio companies as well. You have to see, I feel, the the negative aspects also. You have to talk out the negative aspects, like how the investor behaves when things are not going right. And most of all, you have to be clear on your goal, that whether you want an investor or a strategic investor. So you have to set clear goals on that, and then accordingly channelize your approach, look for the people who are expertise in that particular industry. And yeah, and then there are certain ways at attending networking events and networking over certain channels, and that helps a lot. And yeah, being part of accelerator, they connect you to the leaders and other that. Yeah, those are the methods I will suggest.
Thank you, Kush. Hans, how beneficial is relationship when it comes to having someone who introduce you to them or be part of the cycle when it comes to investors?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? What do you
How
mean?
beneficial is be part of this cycle, be having someone already knows them, or anyway building a relationship with them.
It depends really if you are actually involved in the company in a sense. If you know the business, the startup is actually working in the environment. My experience has been is that trying to find an investor who understands the area well is extreme good plus. Even if in the end of the day he doesn't invest, it would be interesting to see why he doesn't invest, and to have and engage a discussion with him, and to give him and see what reasons are, because you can also learn from an investor if he declines to invest, why he's doing so, because he can give you answers what you are making wrong. And in the end of the day, is what I also advise my startups, or the startups I've been advising, is that you don't go for the biggest and the most important investor first. You approach a couple of investors which are perhaps not so important, and you engage a discussion with them, because you train yourself on presenting the deck, you train yourself on presenting the company and the strategy, and then you in which each question they ask, you get better, and you adjust your deck and your pitch accordingly. So when it comes to the most important, to the final important presentation for the investor you would really like to have on board, then you're already set, because you have done a lot of dry ups, and you have spent some time with investors, so you know what they're expecting and what kind of questions they will have. That's my experience, and this is an advice I would give to startups, and we're always giving to startups.
Thank you, Hans. Michael, what's your take?
Yeah, I think the prior panelists have summarized the position, and Hans' advice in terms of the dry run and practice. I think it's very, very important. And just to sort of tease out this point to individuals, is a lot of this is about repetition. A lot of this is about, repetition and understanding that. And I think, again, this is part of the startup journey that I think maybe entrepreneurs are not maybe aware of upfront, is the repetitive nature of this. And it requires that sort of resilience to understand you're going to make 100 phone calls, 500 calls. You're not going to get you're going to get a lot of no's before you eventually kiss the right frog and get your prince. And it's just that numbers game. And you increase your chances by making sure that you are a highly resourceful entrepreneur, because investors, they invest in investable entrepreneurs, people who they feel have the right character, can the story, can get people to buy into their vision, which is very important. Get people to buy into their vision and put forward a credible case. But there are lots of networks, there are lots of support organizations. Certainly from 20 years ago, or when I started, things have really changed. There's so many. I mean, EquityMatch is a very good. Let's put that right up there. If you're looking for people to help segment your investor universe and hopefully put you in front of the right ones, you couldn't get a better place to start. So there are lots of support organizations like this now. Getting a mentor is very helpful. Someone who has done that is very helpful, who's walked that road to help you. Yes, that's what I would say. But it's never easy. But you increase your chances by making yourself as investable as possible and persevere. Don't give up.
Absolutely, never give up.
Yeah.
So we're very close to the end. Or I really enjoying. I'm very much enjoying. But unfortunately, we have timing against us. But I would like to close our last topic, which is forecasting and overcoming cash flow deficit. Now we move to the last part of a business model, which are the financial. And I see many exercising very well on the spreadsheet and have a very beautiful cash flow. My reality is different. So my question is, Kush, let me start with you. How complicated is managing cash flow, especially when your revenue as such is tiny, tiny, tiny?
Oh, sorry. I can you pardon? I didn't get the question.
How complicated is managing cash flow, especially at the very beginning where there is almost no revenue?
So yeah, it's quite. Sorry, I just some glitch, mind. I'm really sorry. I am really sorry.
Okay, now you are.
I don't know what's been happening. So yeah, yeah. So cash flow is quite a critical aspect, and it's quite been ignored. I feel like there are so there's a certain this thing.
Yes, some noisy on the background. I'm moving to Taryn, and after I'm back to Kush later. Taryn, how good are your startups when it comes to manage cash flow? Make sure that they don't run out of money very soon, especially when they fundraise.
Well, actually, what we were talking previously, it depends on the business model. If you're in a business to consumer, the way that actually this is why we prefer to invest in startups that they're going to business, and then in an organically way they are arriving to consumer more than starting with the business to consumer. The way that they burn cash, it's very fast. We do not control it so much, and it's not our goal to be controlling the startups. So we do, I don't know. As I said previously, the type of startups that we are investing, they are already invoicing. So they are receiving little by little, and when they are fundraising, they are more or less covering where is it going to be the objective of the fundraising and where they're going to invest. In general terms, most of them, they are covering. It happened when during the COVID that one that she didn't have cash flow, and suddenly COVID came over. She was in the tourist in the restaurant sector, and she failed. Now better, no? Sorry,
Yeah, now it's better.
sorry.
I mean, I do believe cash flow is crucial. I'm very meticulous when it comes to cash flow in anything I do. And I do believe, for example, when many founders, they come and say, okay, I need 1 million for 12 months to run away. Um, or maybe they say 24 months run away in Europe. And after they finish everything in 6 months because they start hiring, they get excited. And there is no way you get any revenue while you're burning every day. Hans, what do you think?
I mean, the cash flow model and the business model is mostly what I would say to my startups or to the startups I actually see is that in the end of the day, it's science fiction. It's a pure science fiction book because being in the market means that you have to deal with things which you couldn't provide for. So it's very important when I look at the cash flow projections is how much reserves do they have, and coming to the burn rate. I am looking very, very meticulously to the burn rate, and I would like to know, the first question is, how much salary are you paying yourself? And we just had this week, we had a situation where we wanted to invest in a company, and then we got the P&L, and we found out that the founder himself paid a huge amount of salary. So we asked him why he is paying himself. He says, well, I'm taking the risk. In fact, he's not taking the risk. He's burning the money from the investors. So he doesn't understand. And guess what? And this summarizes what we've been saying before, is he came from a big company. He has been working 30 years in a big company, an insurance company. So he was now the head of a startup. in the electronic business, which is interesting for us. Why? Because they have developed a new channel, and this guy was paying himself a huge amount of salary. So first thing is what's the burn rate, and second is what I'm looking for is what are the reserves. If, for instance, some sales are delayed or they have to make a down payment for a new order, how much cash do they have in the bank, and how much cash do they have left? And also asking some investors, are they willing to put in some money if there is a crisis?
Yeah.
So that's my experience. I'm extremely pragmatic. I'm not talking about theories or generalism. I look at the burn rate. I look at the statements, and this is what I want to see. Because in the end of the day, it's where a company sinks and where a company goes bankrupt. It's always because it's running out of money.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing you can do when money are over.
And it comes from both sides. Either the cost explodes or there's no sales.
Yeah, it does. Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, struggling and managing cash flow is it's a feature, not a bug, is it? of the startup journey. It's what it's all about. But I think, yes, everyone has said what needs to be said on it. All I would just say, it's very typical. I think some of it comes down to, again, underappreciating just how long, how involved things are, the cost creep on items,
Yes.
Production costs. Things don't get computed. Even simple things, taxes, VATs, duty, all kinds of ancillary costs that build up, ongoing. So for me, if you underappreciate and you fail to put in the necessary contingency, that's a lot of where a lot of the inherent problems are built. But at the end of the day, let's all be frank. As the saying goes, strategy without execution is a dream, and execution without strategy is a nightmare. So although we can say the spreadsheets are ultimately no plan survives contact, you owe it to yourself to do the best work you can. You can't predict the future. Who could predict COVID? Nobody. So, but you do the best work you can and give it as much sensitivity as you can, build in as much miscellaneous and contingency as you can, and then manage it as tightly and aggressively as you can, and forensically as you can. So that's what I would probably just add to that. But there's no getting around it. It's
No. I mean, anyway, the point is, without cash, we don't go anywhere, and that's it is what it is. You must be very careful when you burn, if you burn too much. Michael, Hans, Taryn, and Kush, unfortunately, is not here with us. I'm very sorry he got disconnected. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure for me, and I hope to see you again next time. And thank you to everyone still watching us at 6 o'clock in Europe, 7 in Europe, 6 in UK, and wherever you are. Thank you so much, and see you again next time. Thank you.
Max. All the best. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.